So again, I'm Shauna Marbury with the Greater Cleveland Partnership, and this is the panel on engaging high school interns. Employers often have questions about how to structure a meaningful internship for our younger students, for high school students. So our panelists hope to shed some light on that issue. I am going to do brief introductions of everyone on the dais here with me. So I'll start to my immediate right and go down the row. So we have Jack Schron, who's the president of Juergens Incorporated. He's led Juergens as president and CEO for about 30 years, also co-founding an internet education business called Tooling University. Jack also served 28 years in the U.S. Army, retiring as a lieutenant colonel. In 2013, he was reelected to a 4-year term on the Cuyahoga County Council, where his first priority is job creation and the second is continuing to rebuild the credibility of Cuyahoga County's government. Next on the panel, we have Chris Keim. Chris is an attorney with Franz Ward. He's a trial lawyer who focuses on civil litigation matters, including general business disputes, product liability claims, employment litigation, and transportation law. Chris is also a former Cuyahoga County assistant prosecutor, where he gained significant first chair jury trial experience prosecuting adult felony cases. And next to Chris, we have Amber Vera, who is with E.C. Kitzel & Sons. Amber grew up in Cleveland and graduated from Max S. Hayes Vocational High School. During her senior year, she was offered a position at E.C. Kitzel & Sons by owner Tom Schumann. Amber's been trained around the shop and has sharpened her skills in various departments. She has also taken college courses in small business management. Next to Amber, we have Jonas Robinson, who's an associate with BMO Capital Markets. Jonas works with BMO Capital Markets, corporate banking, commercial real estate group, where he's responsible for managing 1/4 of a portfolio of real estate loans aggregating over $3 billion, primarily to real estate investment trusts. Jonas joined BMO Financial Group in 2011. He's a graduate of JFK High School in Cleveland, received his Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration from Morehouse College, and he's an active member of the Urban Land Institute in Chicago. And then finally, we have Rob LaSalvia, who is the Director of Education for NASA Glenn Research Center. Rob is the Division Chief for the Office of Education at NASA and is responsible for the development and implementation of a portfolio of innovative partnerships and programs that leverage NASA's unique mission, content, facilities, and workforce to improve the quality of science and math nationally. Rob started his career as a co-op student at NASA Glenn. A native of Cleveland, he graduated from Cleveland State with a bachelor's in education and a master's degree in educational technology from Baldwin Wallace College in Berea. So we have a very distinguished panel and lots to talk about, so let's jump right in. Again, as I mentioned in the opening, employers sometimes have questions about what's the best way to engage a high school student in an internship setting. So I'll turn to our panelists, and we'll start with you, Jack. How do you think, from your perspective, that a high school internship differs from an internship you would structure for a college student?
Well, you've got a lot of challenges with bringing high school students in, at least into our company. We're a manufacturing company, and I heard on the last panel the issues of safety, machines, equipment, things of that nature. When you're talking about an internship that we have experience for a student that maybe is going to go on to a 4-year school, it's boiled down to mainly an exposure level, a senior project, things of that nature for 6 weeks at the end of their school year. We are actually have brought forth a new program where we've truly engaged the high school students, and I'd be happy to chat about that at some point along the way. But there's a real difference. The other one big difference is just something as simple as the transportation. A high school student who's in the 9th or 10th grade, it sounds like an easy thing, but getting them, we're very engaged with Max Hayes High School, and just getting the student from Max Hayes to to Juergens, right next to where the food bank is, it takes that student usually 2 to 3 school buses to get to our location. So the practical side of that is going to be a challenge. And now I do understand that one of our panelists, she was able to drive to her internship, and that made all the difference in the world, I'm sure, to her. If she had to be using public transportation, it would be a challenge.
Okay. Jonas, let me bring you into the conversation. I know that you've had the experience of a high school internship and then also an internship at the college level. So again, focusing on your high school internship, how was that structured differently?
Well, I think for high school and college, there's a difference when it comes to what's expected of you in your internship. When I think of high school internships, I think of early exposure to professionals, and I think of just building your network. And when I think of high school students, I also think of mainly like some administrative tasks. When I think of high school students or college students, I think of at this point in your career, you're trying to find a job. So you're trying to perform well, you're trying to stand out, you're trying to get the full-time offer after your internship. So there's a clear difference in what's expected of you, but I think both internships are really important. I think that if you have an internship in high school, it will almost line you up for an internship in college or a job right out of high school if you decide not to go to college, because employers and me, when I look at resumes, I like to see job experience.
Okay, so the exposure is important. We've also touched on a bit of how there can be some challenges in terms of maybe the management or the structure of high school internships with transportation. Any other challenges, not to dwell on the negative, but the reality, challenges for dealing with high school students and then how you address those? Rob,
Yeah, so I would say when thinking about a high school internship program in particular, it's true of college as well, but perhaps more important for high school is that you really need to think carefully about expectations. Expectations on the side of the mentor and expectations on the side of the student. And so Northeast Ohio schools, they produce so many high quality, so many talented students capable of so much. Sometimes a mentor wants to view an intern perhaps as a junior employee, right? But it's not appropriate to perhaps view an intern as a junior employee because it really is a career development experience. And so for that reason, for example, to kind of mitigate that at NASA, we do quite a bit when we think about sort of professional development for students, career workshops, a poster session at the end to work on presentation skills. But for mentors, you really need to have them think carefully about the assignment, think carefully about the duties, think carefully about the level of supervision and support that they're going to provide to that student to make it a match on both sides.
Okay, great. Chris, I know your firm has had some experience with St. Martin de Porres and working with interns through that program. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges and the successes that you've had?
Sure. Just for those that don't know, St. Martin de Porres is a high school over on 61st and St. Clair that has a corporate work study program. So all of their students, they earn their tuition by working in the community. So we don't pay the students, we pay St. Martin de Porres. And that's how a couple days a week they come through their school to our program, to our firm and work. And I think some of the challenges we've had is probably faced with more engagement. And I was telling people earlier when we were talking about this panel, it's really important to understand that you're really helping the student and you're helping your company and everyone feels good, but you really need to center on the engagement. Recently, I was at an event where we realized that we weren't doing enough probably and ended up probably restructuring our program. So now we have at our firm, every month there's a secretary who is responsible for the high school student. We have 2 of them, and an attorney. And so they're getting exposed, and the attorney takes them to a mediation or deposition within our office. And so it probably helps on the engagement side from that point, because up until that point, we were patting ourselves on the back, but really wondering, were we doing enough? And now we see this year that it really is kind of where everybody at our firm kind of sees a student and kind of becomes more engaged with them. So we've really kind of felt that process has become better.
So picking up on that thread of engagement, what about engaging your current full-time employees with the interns? Any stories or advice there? Amber, I'm going to bring you in. You were a former high school intern. Share with us your experience of interacting with other full-time employees while you were an intern.
When I originally started, I was first introduced to everybody in the shop. There's about 17 people that work in the shop. At that point, I then was placed in a department where I would be trained, and that's where I was going to be working. And I was there hands-on right away, interacting with everyone. I ate lunch with them. I had break time with them. I did everything with them like a normal full-time employee, and it made the transition a lot easier when I was actually hired on full-time, because I was kind of already one of them.
What about one of the employers on the panel? How do you bring your other employees into the internship equation? Jack?
Yeah, I think that what's interesting is the way Tom Schumann, who runs EC Kitzel, did that. And I think that more employers need to say, okay, we're not going to make them junior employees. That's not what a high school student is. It's an exposure, it's an opportunity, but we as employers can't sit around and say, well, there's going to be a skills labor shortage and not be part of the solution. If we're going to sit around on our duff and say, well, blame it on the educational institutions because they don't put it on enough students, or blame it on some other recourse, we need to get engaged. And so it starts with the engagement of the high school students to give that exposure. And it means that our employees need to be part of that whole process. We actually this year have flipped our high school model. Our engagement with the college students is a whole different engagement, because we do expect them to be quasi-junior employees because they want to get them engaged. This year we flipped our model and we engaged with Mayfield High School has a Mayfield Vocational School which has a career tech for special needs kids called CVEC. And so it became engaging with our people at the management level, and they said, let's get engaged. We call all of our employees together and said, we're going to have a school bus that's going to drop off 6 students from the Mayfield Special Needs Program to Juergens every single day. There'll be 2 teachers in the classroom at Juergens, and Juergens will be their classroom for the entire school year. We actually brought all their parents into Juergens. We had them introduce themselves to all the employees and said, these are part of the solution for the skills labor area, because they're going to get engaged and they're going to find a way. And so it almost, I mean, sometimes I walk out on the floor and I actually have a tear in my eye because I see an employee engaged with these special needs kids that when they came in, we didn't know what the expectation was. And today they're involved with special equipment, they're involved with computers, they're involved with things, and it's because the employee has taken the time to take that warm arm and put it around these special needs kids and help guide them through the process. So we have really been involved with making sure that it starts all the way from me wanting to encourage it all the way to the individual employees embracing every one of these kids. And we've been told the program has been so successful they're going to repeat it again next year. And we had a really exciting thing last week. One of our students with special needs was picked up to go to Tri-C to actually get college education curriculum at the same time they're going to Juergens for their school. So it was pretty exciting. And it's all because of the employees.
Great. Chris?
You know, that reminded me, I was part of Leadership Cleveland, and this is a story about what a difference you can make in these students' lives. And Leadership Cleveland is a civic engagement program. I see someone who's used it the year before I was sitting here. And we go around in one of our days and learn about what's going on in the community. One of the days was Education Day, and we went to St. Martin de Porres. Now, we had been a sponsor there from the beginning, since 2004. And when we walked in, there's like 60 of us, and our name was on a list of like 7 or 8 employers that were part of this high school program. And Rich Clark, the president, gets up to speak. And if you ever met him, I will never do justice to his speech. But he talked about the difference that their interns have on their current students. They brought a college student back, and was speaking to the high school students, one of the people that went through St. Martin de Porres. And he said, the students asked him, how do you do it? On those days that it's really hard to keep going, how do you get through college? Can we do it? And the college student at the time told a story. He was an intern at Parker Hannafin inside their legal department. And the general counsel took him home for a dinner. And the student said, I went into this person's home, and it was the first time that I'd ever seen anybody run up to greet the parent when they came in. And it was the first time I had ever watched anybody eat dinner together. And I said to myself, at that point, I want that in my life. And that's what's getting that intern through college. And so you really can. And that was when I realized, I felt pretty good that we were one of the 7 or 8 sponsors of that were sitting there that day, and realized we weren't doing enough because we didn't have that level of engagement. So you can make a big difference in these kids' lives.
So obviously a very impactful internship for that high school student. To our former high school students on the panel, Jonas and Amber, how did your high school internships impact you, and how did they help you develop to where you are now, whether you're in full-time employment or you're going on to college? How did those internships really benefit you? Jonas?
Sure. So in high school, I graduated from JFK in Cleveland, and while in high school, I interned at Ozan Construction Company, and right now I work in real estate finance in Chicago. And my internship helped me out tremendously. While interning, I was able to do many things because through hard work and drive and initiative, the senior executives at the company believed in me and started to trust me. So I would work on every phase of the project, from bidding, demolition, going down to City Hall, arguing about certificate of occupancies and permits and all sorts of things. And, but I think the most important thing that I learned while in high school was the ability to communicate with senior people. And that has helped me out along the way in my career. I currently work with C-suite executives for public and private REITs all over the United States, and I was with a colleague one day, and she's a little nervous when it comes to speaking to senior level people. But because I had that early exposure that I was talking about earlier, I was exposed to C-suite executives. I'm able to hold a conversation and just interact with everyone. So that's one thing I appreciate and I learned during my high school internship.
Amber, what about you?
I think mine, it's a little different. Getting my foot in the door so early helped me in choosing when it came to college and a degree, because I've changed my major so many times. So once I got my foot in the door and I got working and I started to see what I wanted for myself and what I wanted to do, and I've came to the conclusion that I was going to run that place one day, and that's where I'm at now. I'm working on it. One more year, I'll be there.
So did your internship help you in terms of finally settling on a major? How did that work?
I think that it had a big impact on that, because I was able to get in and see the different sides of manufacturing, because I've done work in different departments of the shop, and I have a stronger relationship with a lot of the senior people there that are in the office and the office staff, and just being a part of some of the little things that go into running a business helped me make that decision.
Great. So we heard earlier our keynote speaker, Dr. Ferguson, talked about both the business benefits and sort of the moral imperative of offering internships to the next generation. So to our employers on the panel, what are the benefits for you from your interns? Rob?
Yeah, so talking to many mentors, it's funny when you first approach a potential mentor and say, hey, think about taking on this high school student. I think you have a lot to give. Sometimes you'll encounter a bit of resistance. I have too much work on my plate right now. I have some milestones I need to hit. I don't have the time. And so we'll start small. We'll do shadowing experiences or career presentations in classrooms. But ultimately, as mentors begin to get their feet wet with students and work with students more and more, for them, it sort of opens up this whole new potential pathway of sort of creativity and a fresh perspective. So we're a business that's really built upon sort of innovation and creativity. And so just pulling in this fresh perspective, this sort of unbiased opinion, these different attitudes and ideas towards science and engineering, that's the great value that they see beyond the sort of obvious benefit of building a potential workforce in the future.
Any other benefits, Jack?
Well, I think that in today's business, you have a wide range of everybody from those with gray hair like myself all the way down to our young employees, and they see that we care about the next generation. And the millennials, they can go work anywhere they want. They've got this fluid desire to go anywhere, and if they don't sense that the place they're working cares and has a cultural commitment also, I think they're going to go someplace else. And so it becomes pretty obvious that you can demonstrate it by lip service, or you can actually demonstrate it by real actions. And so I think when you do an internship, they say, it was only 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I might have been that young man or woman, and I really like working for a company that cares about that. And when we had that audience doing our opening ceremonies for our CVEC, and all those parents were sitting there watching their children up there, it said, okay, wait, this company is only 2 miles away from where I live, and they seem to care, and so now it transcends into manufacturing is not a bad place for my child to want to use their brains and their hands. So the parents now picked up on that. And then, of course, the most important is the student themselves. I mean, these 6 students, I don't know where they'll end up after this year, some of which maybe will stay with us. But if they don't, if they go to Lincoln Electric, if they go to EC Kitzel, wherever they end up, they will have walked out with skills. And so ultimately, we'll have benefited the students, we hope, also. So it's, and it doesn't hurt for the CEO to go to bed saying, we did something good today, too.
Great. So, and this is a question that may be a curveball for our panel, but I'm just picking up on the conversation. So when we talk about the benefits and we talk about internships for high school students, sometimes it's a longer-term investment. Obviously, these students, high school students, are a little further down the talent pipeline than maybe a college student. How do you, again, as employers, work to infuse the culture in your company that we need to make this long-term investment in these students? Anyone?
I would say where we work, that commitment really does start at the top of the organization. We have a long track record and a long history of working with high school students and college students. And so I would say at the center director agency leadership level, that sort of expectation to give back and to start to build that pipeline is shared. And that's really what helps attract many, many mentors.
Yeah, and from our perspective, the odds of them coming to us, then going through college, going to law school, coming back, probably aren't that great. But we really, from the top down, want to expose these people to the legal industry, and so whether it's them, their friends, their family, we can start to build a pipeline out of the urban center that can somehow get people interested in the law. So we kind of look at a really big picture as far as that goes. And really, we get so much out, our mentors, formal and informal, get so much out of it that I think as an organization, it's very important. I think Jack hit it. The millennials, all of us should have purpose in life, but the millennials are really driving that. And so it shows them that we are kind of committed to that.
So we have a lot of employers in the room today, and hopefully all of them are thinking about either starting a high school aspect to your existing internship program or maybe strengthening what you already have in place. So what would each of you offer them as a piece of advice to actually either start a high school component or strengthen what's already in place? Jack, we'll start with you.
Well, the start has to be between the left ear and the right ear on the management saying, we're willing to do this. And if every employer in this room just took one student, and the multiplier effect of that would be astronomical. So my advice would be, it might not work the first time, might not work the second year, might not work the third year, but look at your own marketing programs, your own business programs. Did you hit a home run every time? No, but it's part of investing in not only your company, because you're changing your culture, you're actually infusing that because that next generation of millennials, they're watching what you're doing. You can't kid them. If you only did it for a year and all of a sudden you say, well, no big deal, then they're also going to sense that you really don't care about the future. When you talk lip service about skills shortage and job talent pools, things like that, if you're not willing to invest in that, then you're really only paying lip service. So I would tell every employer in here who's thinking about doing it, do it. Just do it. The old, Nike phrase, I guess, out there.
Good advice. Chris, how about you?
I think the key is to really understand what structure you need in advance and to constantly reevaluate that. For example, we used to have our HR director in charge of these students until I went that day to see that we need to do more. And we really took a step back and said, she doesn't have time to make sure these students are getting engaged. Not all of our people at our firm even were meeting the students. So we really kind of went back, reevaluated, and we put our diversity and inclusion committee in charge of it because for the inclusive part of the firm. And then we engaged. Every month there's a different secretary who's in charge. Every month there's a different attorney. And so it flows much better now because we really kind of looked at the structure. If you do it, make sure you're putting it in the hands of someone who has the passion and the time to take care of it.
Okay. Amber, from the intern perspective, what piece of advice would you offer?
I would have to say patience. For one, you have to be able to understand that this is new to them, and not many people have been able to have multiple internships. So you have to be willing to put the work in and be open to hearing any concerns they have and just be willing to teach them and work with them. Because from me, it was all new. I had the soft skills from high school training, but running those machines and being in that environment with so many other senior people that have been there for so long, it was new to me to have to learn how to take advice from other people and say, okay, these people have been here longer, they know what they're talking about. So you have to really be patient.
Well, I would say that a small investment could pay many dividends. I grew up in Cleveland, underserved communities, and I always wanted the best for me. My family always wanted the best for me, but you just didn't have the means. So it's hard to do it when you don't have support, and it's easy to go down another road, and it's sometimes hard to go down the road less traveled, and that road less traveled could be different per neighborhood. But I went down that road less traveled, first generation college student, but on that road I had many cheerleaders and many mentors, and I had family members, and I had people who cared about me and wanted me to succeed, and it was definitely along the way. It probably wasn't money, maybe it was just support, maybe it was a letter in college, but I would just say, have patience, spend a little time, invest in our youth, and you never know, you just may change a life.
I would say that there's some sort of nuts and bolts procedural stuff to think through before taking on a student, sort of IT security access, physical access, connections with the school district to think about sort of identifying the student and sort of getting them there and meeting their needs. But all those things are sort of minor when you consider the outcome of this work. The fact that if, for example, for NASA, if we want to maintain our position as the world leader in space exploration and aerospace research, it is absolutely essential that we attract or develop a pipeline of talent. 30 years from now, the staff we have now are going to be gone, and they're going to be replaced hopefully by students from school districts in Northeast Ohio and around the country. And so if we don't make that investment now, if we don't see that investment, if we don't do this work together, then we're not going to achieve our goal.
So investment is the key to it all, bringing it all together. Well, I want to thank our panelists for sharing their insights. We do have time for a few questions, so we'll do some questions and answers. There are microphones roving around the room. Does anyone have a question?
No?
Wow, this is a tough crowd.
I just want to say thank you to everyone on the panel. But Amber, I was really curious to hear more about your experience, your hands-on experience once you got into the shop. I've been to the shop and I think it's intimidating. It
Yeah.
can be intimidating. So can you walk us through the process there? Who are your mentors? How did they treat you? Was it project-based, clearly experiential, but what were the real hallmarks of that experience for you in that shop?
Well, the first person that I met was George Calvi, and he runs the shop there. He then, introduced me to everybody else. They kind of just figured they would put me somewhere and see how it worked, because you really didn't know. So I was placed in the machining department. Matt Nestor is my partner there, and he showed me everything that I needed to know based on how to run the machines, because I've never seen those machines before. Anything that I didn't know about how to measure or inspect those tools. I had some skills on the inspection equipment from when I was in high school, but I've never seen inserts like that or, other type of, I've never even heard of diamond tip tooling until then. So it was big there, but for the most part, Matt has been my mentor, if you would say, because he's done everything in that department for me. And I've had some shadowing in like other departments around the shop, finishing the tools and edge prep and things like that. But Matt has been like the backbone of my career there, if you want to say that.
Any other questions? Mike is coming.
Sorry for making you walk so far. My name's Charlie Keenan. I'm also one of the first ring superintendents that Mike talked about earlier. And, the things that you guys said today were very inspiring and make us feel really, really good about the opportunities that may await our students. As Mike mentioned, we have 65,000 students, and for the business folk in the room, you don't have to do this alone. We want to partner with you, and we see this as a great opportunity. The summit itself was just a great idea, and we're excited about it. So, thank you for your words of wisdom, and thank you for all the people that are here that want to partner.
I actually have a follow-up question for Amber, the other, and it kind of goes along with what everybody was saying, is finding the right people to do this. How long have you been at the company now?
5 years.
5 years, okay. So now that you've been there 5 years and you get to have some hindsight, did you find out that those people that really helped you, that they were selected specifically to do that? Because I could see in my organization there would be people that would gravitate toward the opportunity to teach somebody, and I could also see there's people that wouldn't. So now that you've been there 5 years, was it just kind of a natural fit, or was there some pre-planning on their part?
I think that there was definitely some pre-planning. I also, not to be negative or anything, but being there for 5 years, I've seen how some others in the shop aren't so welcoming, and they're not so eager to give out, what they know, and, oh, here's a trick, maybe try this. So I think that they knew that that would be a right fit, and that, he would be the one to show me what I needed to do. So I do think there was some planning involved in that.
For the employers on the panel, can you speak to how you integrate your internship programs with other opportunities for students to engage? So we, for example, have a lot of senior project requests, shadowing requests. I just kind of want to see how this profession works. Is your internship part of an overall sort of student engagement strategy, or do you primarily tend to focus solely on the internships?
So we have a broader student engagement strategy where we have, it's sort of a broader education strategy where we do sort of teacher support, teacher professional development, student shadowing experiences. We have a great relationship with local museums where we share our content. And then, of course, we have an internship program. So we're a bit more comprehensive, but we also have a bit more of a focused education mission than many businesses.
Jack?
Well, we have a very integrated strategy on our college internships. They're coming right from Cleveland State, one of our schools. John Carroll we have human resources internships going on right now. We've marketing, again, coming out of Cleveland State and other schools. The high school is more of a response to the requests when they come in. When high schools would ask about a program, a lot of times it's their senior exposure in their senior year, so we would handle as many as we can based on the requests. Sometimes I want to shadow an engineering. What really has changed our model in the high school is because it's a direct reflection of the superintendent of transportation. The CVEC program worked out well. It worked out great for us. Our problem was with Max Hayes. We could not get the students to come over on the east side very easily. We wanted to incorporate it directly all the way through, but unfortunately it's just the pure reality of that. So the CVEC program, if you could find transportation, I can guarantee you could probably have more and more of your students placed out there. So for us, I hope that the college student interns are integrated right directly in the workflow. The high school ones, I know the CVEC are integrated directly into the workflow. They're in the production, they're doing things, touching parts, and having an impact on life.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
I teach math at an urban high school, and only a few students are socially and academically prepared to be accepted and successful in internship programs. But what was said earlier today about banks and their confidentiality made me think that most of the students who actually could benefit from the program can't get in, don't know it's there. They might benefit from, as they mentioned with the bank's tours, to see that there's something else to their life than what they see in their homes and their communities. So I'm wondering how much is there an outreach to schools like in East Cleveland, in areas so that to invite them to come see what it looks like at NASA and Juergens and other places, so that even if they don't come to work there, at least they know that there's something out there that looks different than what they see walking around the streets of East Cleveland and Cleveland.
Well, I'll take a shot at that because we build our building specifically for your students. When we build it, I build it with the mezzanine so that the students could actually experience the production facilities and factory and understand it. We don't even call it a factory. It's called a technology distribution center where we're deploying technology. And most of the times, the most exciting people that come through are the teachers, because they come through and so they say, so that's where you use geometry. So that's where you use the math, because how many of us use trig in our geometry in our lives? And after high school, we probably didn't, or college, but actually they used it every day. And so we actually build it that way. We have tours all the time, and it's much easier for a school to bring down a tour of 2 or 3 school buses, and we walk them through. And our employees are thoroughly engaged in wanting to show off exactly what they're doing. We had a group from, actually from the county, wanted to see what manufacturing was all about 2 days ago. And they walked out of there saying, because I asked them before they walked in, what's your vision before you walk through this door? Well, it's going to be dark, it's going to be dungy, black, smoky. They walked out and saw nothing but computers and lasers and coordinate measuring machines, highlights, air conditioning, and we changed their mind. I think we can change your students' minds too.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I mean, it all starts with sort of career awareness, even before an internship. And so an example of what we're doing is on May 12th, we have an event called National Lab Day, where we invite out schools from all across Northeast Ohio and sort of do facility tours and speakers and activities. You can find some information on that on our website, or we could chat afterwards and I could tell you how to get in touch.
Can I just add something real quick? When you mentioned tours, it brought back high school. At Max Hayes, our classes themselves, we didn't just go, on a field trip or anything to these places. There was a program there called WireNet, And they did a lot of work with taking us to these shadow programs or taking us to these different environments where we got that idea of how manufacturing worked. So I think more programs like that are great, especially for high school students, to get there, just get an idea of what's out there and what you could be doing. I think it was great.
When I went to school, just going back to career awareness, we used to have things like Career Day. And I don't know if they still have those these days, but I was invited to go to a school in Chicago to talk to some students because some people, I mean, if they don't have exposure outside of the home, they'll probably never get it. So I like to go to school sometimes and talk to students. And one guy was really interested, and but it's just a one-off thing, but I brought him to the bank and let him sit with me for the day. We are receptive of that. I mean, you don't want to give any confidential information away, of course, but you have to give a little to get a return.
Great. Well, I want to thank everybody on the panel. This has been a great conversation.